For those in Navy Yard on Sunday wanting to watch the Commanders, Walters always makes sure to have the Washington game on the main TV on NFL Sundays. Jaden Daniels and crew look to bounce back at home against the fellow winless Giants. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock this Sunday afternoon.
Did you know that most vitamin D3 supplements come from sheep's wool? I'm Kat, founder of Ritual. We're making traceability the new standard for the supplement industry. When I was pregnant, I couldn't find a multivitamin I could trust, so I created my own. Ours is made traceable, third-party tested, and clean label project certified. Oh, and our vitamin D3? It comes from sustainably harvested lichen from England, not sheep. Trace for yourself with 25% off at ritual.com/podcast.
Line to the pitch. Swing a blast to straightaway center and deep. Harris, forget about it. This one into orbit. And it hits the bullpen cart beyond the center field wall. Oh my, what a blast for Abrams. 3-0 Nationals. The big righty deals. And a swing and a blast toward the gap in right center field. This one's getting it down, split the outfielders, and one-hop the fence. Young picks it up on the warning track. Harris races into second with a double. The Braves' first hit of the night. So Irvin's no-hit bid comes to an end after 5 2/3 innings. And the Nationals Park crowd will give Irvin a hand with the deepest no-hit bid of his career. Here's the pitch. Swing and a miss. He struck him out with a high fastball. So Irvin gets a huge strikeout after falling behind Ozuna. The no-hitter and the shutout bid gone, but Irvin limits the damage to 1 run on 2 hits. He picks up a big 5th strikeout.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Thursday, September 12th, 2024, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. It would not have been the first time that a National starting pitcher threw a no-hitter late in a regular season. If you know your Nats history, and many of you, of course, do, you know that 2 of the team's 3 no-hitters during its time in Washington, D.C. have come very late in regular seasons, right? Jordan Zimmermann threw a no-hitter on September 28th, 2014. Max Scherzer's 2 no-hitters came on June 20th, 2015, and October 3rd, 2015. Jake Irvin on Wednesday evening flirted with a no-hitter. Didn't get it, but the Nats did get a win. A 5-1 win over the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park for a split of a 2-game series. The Nats, for this regular season now, 65-80, including 8-5 against the Braves. All 13 games with the Braves now are done. The Nats need to go at least 7-10 over their last 17 games in order to surpass the last regular season's record of 71-91. This installment of the Nats Chat podcast brought to us by Capo's Deli. Make sure to check out its location at Nationals Park in section 136 near the Nationals bullpen. C.J. Abrams on Wednesday evening joined the 2020 club. The Nats as a team on Wednesday evening totaled 13 hits, including 11 of Brave starting pitcher Max Fried. And yes, Jake Irvin took a no-hitter into the 6th inning. Mark, you have seen these dances before. You tell me the truth here. Did you think that Irvin was going to do as Zimmermann and Scherzer did years ago?
I will admit I did not really see it coming in this one. Nothing against Jake Irvin, who was fantastic and was fantastic against the Braves all season long in 4 outings against them. Complete domination against them. But knowing how hard it is these days, especially for young starters that's just not used to going deep into games, I felt like the odds were probably stacked against him. Davey Martinez admitted that he got a little nervous as a manager because you're confronted with this question of, do I let him keep going?
Because I said, oh boy, we're in the 6th inning and he hadn't given up a hit yet. So
who knows what the pitch count would have been. If he had gotten that to like the 8th or even to the 9th, it would have been getting a little dicey with that pitch count, especially this late in the season. So I think Davey was actually all right with that first hit coming with 2 outs in the 6th. So no, I didn't necessarily see it coming, but I don't think that takes away at all from what he did in this start or what he did all season long against the Braves.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet a lot of managers, Davey included, don't mind when their starting pitcher doesn't throw a no-hitter. Like, throw a 1-hitter or a 2-hitter, but a no-hitter puts the manager in an uncomfortable position. It's probably annoying, right? Because now you have to wrestle with this inner turmoil of, do you leave the guy in? Do you take the guy out? if the guy gives up at least one hit, you don't have to worry about any of that. So I could totally understand where Davey might have been coming from. But yeah, Jake Irvin, excellent work in this game. So he came into the game having allowed at least 4 earned runs in 7 of his previous 11 starts. We've been talking about what's been happening with Jake Irvin. He, in this post-All-Star break portion of the season, has not been the pitcher he was going into the All-Star break. But he, in this game on Wednesday evening, was really good. 1 run in 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, gave up just 2 hits, which were back-to-back 2-out doubles in the top of the 6th. He began the outing by tossing 5 2/3 scoreless and hitless innings, 84 pitches, 52 strikes, 32 balls. So you look at Jake Irvin's now, his season, where he's at here, 30 starts in the regular season, ERA of 4.19, whip of 1.19. And how about this? I don't think he gets enough credit for this. A team-high 172 innings pitched. You know, as much as we talk about Patrick Corbin in eating innings, Jake Irvin has been the true innings eater in this Nats rotation this season. And depending on how many starts he makes the rest of the way and how he does in those starts, he has a shot here at 190 innings pitched.
He is, at this moment, 4th in the National League with 172 innings pitched. And look at the 3 guys ahead of him on that list. Logan Webb of the Giants, Zach Wheeler, and Aaron Nola of the Phillies. Those are 3 of the ultimate workhorses in the major leagues, established veteran pitchers, and Jake Irvin is right there with them. And the guys behind him are Dylan Cease and Chris Sale. That is some elite company to be with. Now, are the overall numbers for Irvin as good as those other guys? No, but he has been durable. He has given them length. And aside from a couple of blow-up starts here lately, I think he's been awfully good. And I think deserves to be thought of as a legitimate workhorse. For somebody at this stage of his career, only his 2nd big league season, to be doing this and, knock on wood, to be fully healthy here through 30 starts with a couple more, maybe even 3 more to go this year, that's a huge accomplishment for him. And I think that also ties in with what I was saying before about Davey being a little nervous. You saw him pull him at the 84 pitches. I think that's a sign of knowing they're nearing the end of the season. He has thrown a lot. He really wants to get Irvin and all these young guys all the way through to the end. And so I think you see him pulling guys a little sooner now than maybe you would, not even really flirting with 100 pitches. And I think for where they are, the situation they're in, that's fine. To them, making each of these starts is more important than going for broke in any one particular one. And so if he finishes his out over the next few and does kind of the same thing, I think it really sets him up well for next year and is going to establish him truly as one of the league's workhorses.
He has stayed healthy. He has given this team so much more than I think anyone could have ever imagined when he first got promoted to the majors last season. And even with the recent struggles, this still has been a season in which he has demonstrated real improvement. Like, you know, given where he is at, given who he is in terms of pedigree, where he was drafted, etc., this has been a good season for him. It's just a question of like how good, and we'll see what the final numbers end up being. But he's done so many good things here this season. And a big thing that really comes out of this game too is what he has done against the Braves this season. 4 starts, 3 earned runs in 23 1/3 innings. That translates to an ERA of 1.16. He has been masterful against the Braves.
And every one of those starts, it's not like there was 3 great ones and then one that wasn't so good and the other ones made up for it. No, each start was pretty much equally as good as the last. And that says so much. And I understand that the Braves are not the same Braves, especially in their lineup. They've had a ton of injuries. They've been decimated by it. I get that. But you're still dealing with Jorge Soler, Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Orlando Arcia, some pretty good hitters. And I don't care who you're facing. When you face the same team 4 times in a season, they know you. And yeah, you know them, but usually you would think at that point the advantage shifts to the hitters. And he managed to keep the advantage on his side the entire time. And what stood out to me about this one from him, it was fastballs almost exclusively. 74 of his 84 pitches were versions of his fastball. He throws a few different ones. There was a 4-seamer, there was a sinker, and a cutter. He only threw 10 curveballs. Remember the last start against the Pirates, he got lit up, and we talked about how the curveball was a big problem for him in that one. And the message was clear going into this one: establish your fastball. He did that. They couldn't touch it. He kept going back to it. He and Keibert Ruiz were on the same page all the way through. That's a fantastic thing to be able to do, to go 6 innings 1 run, carry a no-hitter into the 6th, basically only throwing fastballs. That's a great lesson for any pitcher if you can get away with that.
And Davey Martinez, during his postgame press conference on Wednesday night, did seem pretty happy about that. He's talked about this with some of these pitchers, right? Like, trust your fastball, throw your fastball. Irvin did that in this game, and it worked out.
His fastball's good, and you don't have to throw so many curveballs.
And yeah, with what he has done against the Braves this season, some of these outings, you go back to May 28th, a 2-0 loss for the Nats at the Braves. Irvin in that game, 6 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts. Like, he really has excelled against, obviously, one of the dominant teams in the National League for years now in the Braves. So awesome stuff from Jake Irvin. Love it. And, just a few more starts for him to go. But, you talk about like ending your season well. He certainly could be in the process of doing that. We'll see. It's been an up and down last few months. That's true. But this was quite an up that he provided here on Wednesday evening.
This episode of Nats Chat is brought to you by Capo's Deli. Capo's Deli is at Nationals Park in Section 136 in the outfield. This weekend, just before Friday night's rainout, Capo's dropped off dinner for my family, and my mother-in-law couldn't stop raving about the Caprese sub. Capo's has locations all over the DMV, in Alexandria, Tyson's Corner, Potomac, Shaw, Western Market, and of course, Nationals Park.
Hey, Al Galdi here to tell you about the latest great offer from Window Nation for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. If you have been thinking about getting new windows, now is the time. Get with Window Nation, 866-90Nation or windownation.com, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. September has arrived. A great time to replace your old inefficient windows with energy-efficient windows from Window Nation. You can get a free, no-obligation quote from Window Nation right now. Contacting Window Nation and seeing what new Window Nation windows would costs you nothing, obligates you to nothing. 866-90Nation or windownation.com, and take advantage of the great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. 866-90Nation or windownation.com. That's 866-90Nation or windownation.com, and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
Hey, Nats Chat, want to tell you about Mint Mobile's premium wireless package starting at $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/natschat. That's mintmobile.com/natschat. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/natschat. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
It'll be another 3-2 to Murphy. Finnegan ready. The kick, and here it comes. Swinging a ground ball left side. Vargas scoops and has it. He will throw on the move to first base, and Yepes, and bang, Zuma, curly W's in the books.
The Nats bullpen in this 5-1 win on Wednesday evening was good. 3 Nats relievers combined for 3 scoreless innings. Derek Law, scoreless top of the 7th, despite giving up a leadoff single and a 1-out double. Jose A. Ferrer, a scoreless top of the 8th, despite giving up back-to-back 1-out singles. But he off giving up the back-to-back 1-out singles, then got 2 big outs. He retired the Braves' numbers 3 and 4 batters in Marcell Ozuna and Matt Olson, and then Kyle Finnegan tossed a perfect top of the 9th. I know what Ferrer did impressed you.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And this is a continuation for him. He's been on a real run here for a while. You go back to August 10th, and that is a total of 15 appearances now. And he has allowed 1 run in those 15 appearances with 13 strikeouts and only 2 walks. He's got great stuff. His last 2 outs he gets in that appearance, 99 to get Marcell Ozuna to fly out, and 100 to get Matt Olson to hit a ground ball back to the mound. That kind of stuff will play in the big leagues. They've been waiting for a while to see this from him. He obviously missed a good chunk of the season with an injury. He came back a little bit rocky early on, but I think he has really found his groove. And the stuff is there that makes you think this could be a really good late inning reliever for them for many years to come. He's still pretty young and inexperienced. If he can harness that and show some consistency with that, he went up against some big hitters in this game. I love the fact that Davey let him stay in there, especially against Ozuna. Could have flipped him with a couple guys on base, brought in a right-hander, and instead said, no, let's see how the kid deals with this. He's facing the tying run at the plate in the 8th inning of a game against a team contending for one of the last spots in the playoffs, and he absolutely lived up to the moment and got 2 really good hitters out.
Well, now that Hunter Harvey is gone, the Nats reliever who is most impressive outing in, outing out in terms of velocity, I think is Jose A. Ferrer. Like, his stuff plays. And, we've talked about, like, what if Finnegan was traded? What if Finnegan wasn't here? Who would the closer be? I brought up Robert Garcia. Maybe Jose A. Ferrer could be someone who they groom into being, if not a closer, then maybe the 8th inning guy. Now, I would think this offseason, the Nats are going to make some moves in terms of the bullpen, maybe bring in, a veteran or two. So who knows what the configuration will be for next season. But perhaps Ferrer can stake his claim to being a later inning reliever for the Nats next year.
Well, if nothing else, how many years have we talked about they have no lefties? How long have they gone in the bullpen without any, or maybe you have one just token guy? They got 3 right now, and I know Joe LaSorsa doesn't really fit in the same category, but Ferrer and Garcia have pitched in high leverage spots, been pretty good. Obviously, Ferrer has been very good here lately, and in his case, that's a homegrown pitcher. How often have they had that in recent years? Not that often. You're talking about a homegrown reliever who can throw 100 from the left side and get righties out because it gets good movement on that pitch as well. It's not a straight 100. It's 100 with a good amount of movement on it. So yeah, I think he should be in the mix for a high leverage spot next year. And if you can ultimately have, an all-star caliber closer in Finnegan, maybe go out and get an experienced right-handed setup guy and fallback option at closer, sort of another Hunter Harvey type of guy. And then Ferrer as your top lefty. Before we even talk about anybody else, that's a really potent trio to have late in games on a team that's trying to win. I like Ferrer's chances of being in that mix.
Yeah, he's got great strikeout stuff for sure, and he showed that with how he's done here lately. So the Nats offense in this 5-1 win over the Braves on Wednesday evening, quite good. Marcus said it, and it's so true. When the Nats see an opposing starting pitcher well, things are usually good from the get-go, and they were in this game. 5 runs, 13 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 10 singles. No walks, but 5 for 10 with runners in scoring position. We had 6 of the 9 players in the Nats lineup, each with exactly 2 hits. We had the Braves starting pitcher being Max Fried, who, of course, is good, but the Nats got to Fried. Now, it was a little odd how this happened. So Fried's final line, 4 runs in 6 innings. He gave up 11 of the Nats' 13 hits, though he did have 6 strikeouts versus no walks, actually threw a good number of strikes, and there was an element here of Fried getting BABIP. Nats had some infield singles. It wasn't always like supremely hard contact off him, but look, 11 hits off Max Fried are 11 hits off Max Fried. So ain't no complaining with what the Nats did offensively in this game. And how about C.J. Abrams homering and hitting what was a milestone home run? Abrams, as the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, 2 for 4 with a solo homer and a single. Did commit a throwing error in the top of the 5th, but Abrams in a Nats 1-run 4th, a 2-out solo homer to center field for a 3-0 Nats lead. The homer going a projected 420 feet per StatCast, and the homer was his 20th home run of this regular season, making him the 5th Nats player to have at least 20 homers and at least 20 stolen bases in a regular season. The others, Alfonso Soriano, Ian Desmond, Bryce Harper, and Lane Thomas. Abrams in a Nats 2-run 3rd had an infield single to the right side of the infield on an 0-2 pitch. It's a funny deal with C.J. Abrams. We have talked so much about the season that he has had, so up and down, so Jekyll and Hyde. If he ends up having a bad September, which so far he has had, even with what he did on Wednesday evening, you're talking about 4 of his final 5 months this season being bad. Bad May, great June, bad July, bad August, potentially bad September. And yet, even with that, 2020 season, If you look at the WAR numbers for Nats position players, he's among the top guys. He just got surpassed in overall WAR per Baseball Reference by Jacob Young, but still Abrams at number 2. His offensive WAR is among the best on the club. His OPS for this regular season is 732. That's not great, but that's not hideous. We've seen plenty of other Nats players with OPSs far below that. So, I don't know if it's just his April and June were so good that they padded the numbers. I mean, those bad months I mentioned were bad. Like, we're not phoning this up. Like, the numbers are pretty bad. But even with that, there are some good things, some really good things about the season that Abrams has had.
It just shows you how supremely talented he is and how good he can be. And yeah, the April and June numbers were fantastic. And so maybe that inflated things and allowed him to slump the way he has in those other months and still put together a good season. But if he just has a decent couple of other months instead of the really bad ones, we're talking 30-30 for him. He's already at 28 steals, so he's going to probably get to 30 anyways. And he clearly was on a path to maybe do that in home runs as well. So the talent is immense there. He's just got to find the consistency. He's got to learn which pitches to swing at. The swing he put on this one was a really good one on a high fastball, got on top of it. And I mean, this was one of those no doubters, 420 feet to center field. It landed and then bounced off the bullpen cart where it's stationed out there in center field. That was big time. He can do this. He just needs to be a little more selective at the plate. The game starts with him swinging at the very first pitch he sees from Max Fried. It's a changeup, not even a fastball, because Fried knows, everybody knows what Abrams does. He grounds out on that pitch, and you're thinking, okay, here we go. Another one of these nights from Abrams. Comes back, gets the infield single in the third inning, the big home run after that. He needs to sort of, in his mind, take a snapshot of what he's doing on these good at-bats and try to implement that all the time. And I think the biggest key for that is just don't swing as much. Wait for the right pitch to swing at, and I think he'll be okay. They've worked so hard with him on this. Maybe he just needs some time off this winter, contemplate it all. Even with all that, this is a supremely talented player who has the ability to be an outstanding player for them, and you just hope that he figures that out. And maybe next year we are talking about a 30-30 season from him.
His second homer in recent days. He also homered in the Nats 7-3 loss at the Pittsburgh Pirates this past Sunday afternoon. We wondered if the homer was, essentially a one-off or maybe the start of some good things to come. Maybe the latter was in fact the case. Homered on Sunday afternoon, homers on Wednesday evening. Hasn't done much in between the homers, that is true. But look, at this point, with how much he has been struggling, you'll take what you can get. Good to see him homer again, and impressive homers. These last two homers, each has been well over 400 feet. Dylan Cruz, he on Wednesday evening as the Nats starting right fielder and number 2 batter, 2 for 4 with an RBI single and another single. Bottom of the first, a 1-out full count single to left field despite having been down at 1.02. This was another StatCast specialty, exit velocity of 108.7 miles per hour, 4th highest exit velocity of the game. Cruz in the Nats 2-run third, opposite field RBI single to right field for a 1-0 Nats lead. James Wood, he in this game as an Nats starting left fielder and cleanup batter, 2 for 4, RBI single and another single. We've talked so much about the James Wood exit velocities, and he had another one in this game. He in the Nats 1-run fifth, opposite field single to left field on a 1-2 pitch. Exit velocity per StatCast of 107.9, 6th highest exit velocity of the game. Now, that was a hit that could have been caught. I don't know if ruling that an error would have been necessarily accurate, but that was a liner that was nearly caught by the Braves left fielder Ramon Laureano. But Wood's RBI single in this game, this is so funny how baseball can be. 2-run third for the Nats, a 1-out RBI infield single on a tapper, a weakly hit ball that went off Max Fried, ends up being an RBI single for a 2-0 Nats lead. So the king of the exit velo ends up getting an RBI single off a pretty weakly hit ball that goes off the pitcher.
So I thought the same thing, and I immediately went to look up, what was the exit velocity? This might be like the softest single he's had yet. You know what it was? It was 89.6. So even what looks to us like a very weak hit was really not all that bad at all at 89, rounded up to 90 miles an hour. And that shows you how accustomed we are to him just scorching the ball well over 100 miles an hour, that a little comebacker that really wasn't hit as poorly as we thought it was could get the job done. So good for him for finding a way to do that. It was a weird offensive game for them as a team. They needed some of those infield singles and just right timing of some of the hits they got to score enough runs in this one. But the thing I liked most about them offensively in this game By the fifth inning, you already have Abrams, Cruz, and Wood, each with multiple hits off a really good opposing pitcher in Max Fried. More of that, please. And I loved that all three of them were up near the top of the lineup, batting first, second, and fourth. More of that, please, as well.
That is crazy. That was 89.6. Oh, it did not look like that at all watching that game. That's interesting.
Hey, Nats Chat listeners, Tim Shovers here, producer and founder of the podcast. Here to tell you about Game Time. Do you struggle sometimes to find tickets to your favorite events? Buying tickets to your favorites shouldn't be so stressful. That's why you should look into the Game Time app. It's even harder these days with the lack of paper tickets available on the street. If you're looking for tickets to Nats, DC United, or even the Drake concert this summer, Game Time offers the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. It's the fastest-growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code NATSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account at gametime.co and redeem code NATSCHAT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
What's up, everybody? It's Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart. I've got a podcast called Throwbacks with actor Jerry Ferrara where we'll be talking all things sports, but also so much more. We'll give you the behind-the-scenes stories from my days as the quarterback on an iconic college football team to Jerry's days as a star on an iconic TV series. So subscribe to Throwbacks wherever you download your podcast and follow us on all social media at Throwback Show.
And now the pitch. Swinging a line drive into right center field. Coming on is Solari. Won't get there. It drops in for a hit. Rounding third. Coming home to score is Tena. Running on contact with two out on a bloop single into right center for Keibert Ruiz. His 50th run batted into the year gives the Nationals an insurance run here in the bottom of the 8th inning. And so now it's Washington 5 and Atlanta 1.
Keibert Ruiz, good game for him, continuing a great month for him. Keibert Ruiz on Wednesday evening as the Nats starting catcher and number 7 batter, 2 for 4 with a double and an RBI single. Bottom of the second, a 2-out double to left field, and Ruiz in the Nats 1-run 8th, 2-out RBI single to no man's land in shallow right center for a 5-1 Nats lead despite having been down in the count at 1.12. Your Keibert Ruiz OPS for this month of September now at 983. This is outstanding. This development here of Keibert Ruiz doing as we have been begging him to do, pleading with him to do, which is to catch fire before the end of the season. He's done that. We got a few weeks to go in September, but this so far has been a really good month for Keibert Ruiz.
Look, the season total is still only 632, but as I've been saying, you got to ignore that because it was so low through April and May. He's been very solid since then and getting better as it goes on, as you said, now here in September, really having his best month so far. We know how physically demanding that position is, and he doesn't take many days off. So it's a great sign. As much as we've questioned this and said maybe more days off would be better for him, I don't know. Maybe more at-bats and playing 6 days a week is actually helping him in the long run. It sounds counterintuitive, but maybe he just needed the at-bats to start feeling comfortable again, and he's a strong kid and he's getting through it all. It's been really nice to see. I don't know that it's going to completely erase the questions that we've all had about his season, but I think it at least diffuses it somewhat that you can go into the offseason and say, at the very least, he should be still considered the number 1 catcher. Maybe you try to get him some help to back him up as somebody who could play a little bit more. But I don't think you're going to get to the end of the season and say to yourself, man, they got a problem at catcher. I think he's done a pretty good job of bouncing back at the plate and behind the plate as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are degrees of concern, right? So if he had continued to struggle, you're talking about being at probably like the highest level of concern. The fact that he may just be ending the season well, you can maybe take that down a notch or two and at least be able to talk yourself into saying, all right, yeah, we probably need a better backup plan, but maybe he can be the player who we want him to be or a close approximation to that. But he's been really good this month. I want to make that clear. We've been on him when he struggled, and I think justifiably so. But when he does well, we should praise him, and we're doing that right here. Maybe the most interesting development with the Nats, if you get beyond like who did what, is Jose Tena in this game was the Nats starting second baseman. We talked on the last installment of the podcast, hey, this guy is hitting. The defense at third base has not exactly been ideal. Well, Jose Tena on Wednesday evening was moved to second base. We had Ildemaro Vargas as the Nats starting third baseman. Tena as the Nats number 6 batter hit again, a multi-hit game, 2 for 4 with two-out singles. Also had a stolen base, did strike out twice, but Tena in the bottom of the second, a 2-out first pitch, opposite field single into left field. Tena in the Nats 1-run 8th, a 2-out full count single through the right side of the infield. Indiana steal of second base. He continues to hit. He's since being promoted to the majors by the Nats, 101 plate appearances, OPS of 783, but him getting the start at second base, what was behind that? What did you make of that?
Well, on the small, micro level, it was they're facing a lefty. We know that Luis Garcia has not played against a whole lot of lefties. So let's sit him, and instead of having Vargas play second like he normally does, let's put him at third for better defense and give Tena a shot at second base. In the bigger picture, I think this was a bit of an admission on the Nationals' part to say, this guy's not going to be our everyday third baseman moving forward. Maybe for the rest of this season, but not in the long run. I think they've seen enough to know that there are some issues there that maybe he can work out to get to be halfway decent there, but to think that he's going to be good enough to play third base on an everyday basis might be asking too much. So now you're saying, where does he fit in the future? We know they have a second baseman in Luis Garcia. We know they have a shortstop in CJ Abrams. So if Tena makes it long-term, it's probably as some kind of utility player. And I think this was the first step in them coming to that realization and saying, okay, let's see how he looks elsewhere. Can he be a good enough defensive player at second base? Maybe it gets a start at shortstop at some point, which is the position he played the most in the minors. And if he looks comfortable there, then you start saying, okay, this guy could be part of the plan here. We know he can hit. And as long as he's a decent glove at multiple positions, you feel fine with that. We might even see him in the outfield at some point. We might even see him at first base at some point, something to consider. To me, the indication here is clear. They know he's not the long-term answer at third, but he could still be a long-term answer as a utility guy. And so you're going to start to see him play some other positions, I think.
So does this eradicate the possibility of him being the placeholder at third base to begin next season, just waiting for Brady House? Or do you think that that's still a possibility?
I think it's a possibility. I think it really boils down to how soon do they think House will be up. If he's in contention for the job on opening day, then doesn't make it, then yeah, I think you could go with Tena because you're probably talking about a few weeks until you call up House at that point. If, however, there's some concern that it could be a while and they think it could be months, then you may need to look elsewhere in that regard. I'm not sure how they would approach that. I don't know if you go sign another third baseman knowing what the situation is. Maybe Trey Lipscomb gets another shot, although we know offensively it just did not go well for him. Defensively was fine. If you could find some way to combine Tena's bat and Lipscomb's glove, you might have something. Unfortunately, technology has not advanced to the point that we can do that yet. So I'm not ruling out that he could be their opening day third baseman, but I think clearly the focus is on House, and it's just a matter of when that happens. And Tena, if he does stick up here, is probably being looked at now as a utility guy.
Well, if the Nats this offseason announce the signing of someone named Trey Tena, then you know something is up. But until then, we can't assume anything. While we're talking Brady House, so all season long we had said, okay, when are they going to call up James Wood? When are they going to call up Dylan Cruz? Each guy, of course, has been called up. We're now down to the dying weeks of the regular season here. Is it too late now to summon Brady House to the majors this season? Do you think there's still a possibility of that? Where do you think we are with that House being promoted to the majors this season?
I mean, they could. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. The thing you're looking at right now is 4 home games against the Marlins, then you're going on the road for a week, and then just one final homestand. So it's not a lot of games, and if it matters to them that it happens at home, then it's either got to be this weekend, which I don't really see coming, or I've got no indication that that's coming, or else it's not till the final week of the season. You could do that again, but I figure they have enough young guys out there right now that they could say, let's just stick with this and let House finish out the season at AAA, bring him to spring training and get a real hard look at him then and decide if we think he's ready. It's not impossible. It could happen that they just want to get a quick look and a taste of it. As you've pointed out, there are some interesting service time issues there, which I understand. And I'm sure somebody in that front office has considered that as well. So unless he's just knocking on the door and demanding it, which he hasn't, he's been fine. He hasn't been bad. He's been fine. Unless he's just absolutely knocking on the door and demanding it, I don't think they feel the need to make that move. They don't have to.
And while we're talking about Nats prospects and guys being promoted, so the season for the Nats High A affiliate, the Wilmington Blue Rocks, has come to an end. And the star for Wilmington, certainly in recent weeks, has been Jarlin Susana. Now, it's an interesting deal with Susana. If you just look at his overall numbers for this season, they don't necessarily blow you away, like the ERA 4.34, just, looking at all of his work in the minors this season. But the guy who we know has this incredible velocity is just such a spectacular strikeout pitcher. He this season, across all levels that he pitched at in the minors, had 157 strikeouts in 103 and 2/3 innings. I mean, that is insane when you think about that. I know when the Nats got him in the package in the Juan Soto trade, there was a thought that maybe long-term he might be a reliever just because he throws so hard, but he was just so raw. He's starting to develop, though, into a true starting pitcher. Like, he had some really good stretches here this season. I guess the question would be this. So, presumably next season, he would, if not start at Double-A, then be promoted to Double-A at some point. I mean, he's not going to just be at Single-A, for the duration of next season. Once a well-regarded prospect is at Double-A, you do start thinking about when might he be promoted to the majors. Do you think it's possible we see Susana in the majors late next season, like August, September, or do you think that that's pushing it with him?
The issue there would probably be this. If he is a starter and you get late in the season, that's when you're worried about workload and innings and all that. And he is at 103 innings for this year, which is not bad, but it's 103. There's a long way to go from there to get through a full season. It was 24 starts from him, so they clearly were very careful with his workload and his innings per start. So I think that sounds to me like a long shot unless they did make that move to the bullpen. And this is why you wait to make that move. If you think he can be a starter, let him try to be a starter until he fails in that role, and then you convert him to the reliever. So I think they're going to be more cautious with him, take their time. He's still 20 years old. He won't turn 21 until next March. So he's got a long way to go. The really encouraging thing about him this year is that after he made the move from Fredericksburg to Wilmington, he started to cut down on the walks. That's really his biggest issue. It's walks, it's command. He strikes out a ton of batters, as you said, doesn't give up a lot of hits, actually does not give up a lot of home runs. He only gave up 2 home runs this season in 103 innings in the minor leagues. That's fantastic. Only gave up 3 of them last year in 63 innings. So it's really about the walks. The walk rate in Fredericksburg for the first 14 starts was 4.8 per 9 innings. That's a huge number. That's not going to work long run. He got it down to 3.4 at Wilmington in 10 starts, much more manageable. So if he can continue to do that, you start to work his way up and think about him potentially being a big league starter at some point. I would think we're still talking another year beyond that, just because of how careful you are with young guys. But the fascinating dilemma, we really want to go pie in the sky here. If the Nationals are in contention next year and Jarlin Susana's throwing 103 miles an hour at Double-A, and even if you're worried about the innings, do you try to find lightning in a bottle and bring him up as a reliever late in the season and do the old Francisco Rodriguez thing? I mean, this is pie in the sky thinking here, and I don't know they would do that. But that to me would be the one scenario where I could maybe see it happening. Not necessarily as a starter, but if you're in contention and you want a burst of energy and a flamethrower in your bullpen late, if you think he could handle that, that would be an interesting way to go about it.
And I was just going to say, would they do the David Price thing with him? Which is, yeah, you see him as a starter, but you bring him up super early in his career as a reliever and try to use him, to win a pennant or maybe even something more. And obviously, if you did that, that would expedite the process of him getting to the majors. Like, if he's got the stuff and he's demonstrating reasonable control, he could be an effective reliever for you late in a season. It's exciting to think about. I mean, he has the stuff to be like a modern day Aroldis Chapman. Like, his stuff is that good. And, look, if you think he could be a starter, then I think you have to stay on that path because a starter is so much more valuable than a reliever. But, man, that stuff is electric, and those strikeout numbers are jaw-dropping when you take a look at them. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the show, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Next up for the Nats is a 4-game series against the National League East worst Miami Marlins at Nationals Park. Game 1, Thursday evening at 6:45. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. This installment of the Nats Chat Podcast brought to us by Capo's Deli. Make sure to check out its location at Nationals Park in section 136 near the Nationals bullpen. We invite you to check out our website, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.